Hi, and welcome to the FESPA Sustainability Spotlight video series. We understand that sustainability is key to future business success and will contribute to reducing negative social and environmental impacts that are essential for our communities. We're providing information here to help with the help of our guest speakers to ensure that we give support to environmental best practice that will help enable you to make more progress on your journey. In today's video, I'll be talking with Clare Taylor from Clare Taylor Consulting, who, as a chartered environmentalist with a master's in environmental management and auditing, coupled with membership to the Institute of Environmental Management and Assessment, a registered environmental auditor, fellow of the RSA and affiliate member of the Chartered Institution of Waste Management and Energy Institute, is very well placed to support today's video with her valuable insight. So, Clare, I've told our audience about your academic qualifications, but perhaps you can just give a bit of an intro to yourself and some of the sectors you're involved with.
Thank you, Graham. Yes, as you may have gathered from the introduction, I'm very interested in environmental issues and have been since childhood. I work mainly in the print sector, but also graphic arts and media and other industries, small brewers, bakers, things like that. So it's very industrial focused. And in my free time, I do more things that are on outside conservation and biodiversity to ring the changes.
Including, I believe, cleaning up the River Lee in East London is a big passion for you.
Yes, it's on my doorstep and I love the river, but it's in a dreadful state. So that is a big passion, yes.
Okay, well, today in our discussion, Clare, we're going to focus on the importance of systems thinking when addressing sustainability. So I think I'd like to know from you really what systems thinking is and why it's important as a start point to our practice.
It's thinking more holistically, so you don't look at just simple cause and effect, but beyond to the web of other connections. And one definition I really like, it comes from one of the lead engineers on the Apollo mission. And he was talking about systems management and systems engineering and referred to systems management as a structure for visualizing all the factors involved as an integrated whole. And this, he explains, allows the systems manager, by following that kind of thinking, to recognize the nature and interactions of complex procedures in advance of them becoming problems. And this was important because many of Apollo's problems had been caused by silo thinking. They didn't account for the fact that in addition to cause and effect, there are knock-on effects, which are often completely unforeseen. You can't address just one thing in isolation. And a couple of examples here, quite classic examples. Yeah. One is often cited as the absolute classic case of the law of unintended consequences, was back in the early 2000s in the UK, the vehicle tax system was changed to encourage using vehicles with lower CO2 emissions. And what happened as an unintended consequence was there was a major move to diesel vehicles. And they, of course, give out far greater quantities of pollutants that are harmful to health, more so than petrol. So it created a different but equally far-reaching problem. And in a similar vein, another inadvertently polluting shift is people moving to wood-burning stoves to try and reduce their fossil carbon emissions. But again, they give off other pollutants, including particulate.
PM 2.5s and...
Yes, the PM 2.5s and the like. And in cities, that's quite a problem. In London, roughly half of our air pollution is from non-transport pollution. And if you take pollution as a whole in London, air pollution as a whole, between a quarter and a third of all particulate pollution is estimated to come from people burning wood to heat homes.
I have to say I'm guilty as charged. We, a few years ago, we installed a lovely Burley wood burner in our home, and now we use it for special occasions because we had no idea at the time that we were contributing to problems for asthmatics and people with breathing issues. So yeah, I think it's a really good example of the unintended.
Yes, many people have been caught out because the focus was just on one aspect of combustion, on the carbon emissions, and not looking at the whole picture, that combustion results in other emissions as well, other forms of air pollution.
And probably in the case of wood burning, it's also, you know, we bought it because it looks nice, and it's a very relaxing way of you know, heating your home. But yeah, then you start thinking about emissions and impact, and you think maybe not quite as helpful as I thought it would be.
Yeah, because everything is connected.
Yeah. Okay, so when you say everything is connected, can I ask what you mean by that exactly?
So apparently simple, obvious actions to correct a problem, such as buying a wood burning stove to cut out carbon dioxide emissions or fossil carbon dioxide emissions, can have these unforeseen and often completely unwanted impacts elsewhere. And then you start playing catch up to mitigate these unintended consequences. And it just rolls on and on. And an example that's directly impacting our industry is compostable plastics.
Yeah.
These were created to resolve the issue of plastics in the environment that damage wildlife, rivers and seas. But it's not as simple as replacing a forever plastic with something that composts. And that's quite apart from the issues around whether they do that sufficiently. The whole system, the whole life cycle is important. And it starts at the beginning by taking something that is inherently recyclable and making it into something that's inherently single use. And then there are all the resource issues around that. And then it ends with a waste material that there's no infrastructure to deal with, because the automatic sorting equipment can't distinguish between compostable and standard plastics. Compostable plastics contaminate recycling streams. Not all green waste goes to composting anyway. So by addressing that one problem in isolation, without looking at the whole system, from creating the plastics as to how they're dealt with at the end of life, has created a raft of different problems.
Yeah.
And they're
just for our viewers, I think when if they're members of FESPA and use the Club FESPA online platform, where we've got all our articles written around a whole range of topics, you've actually provided more insight on many of these things there. So I know that I was particularly interested by the compostable because, you know, on the face of it, compostable just sounds like a good progressive activity without consequence, doesn't it? But
yes, and that's why systems thinking is important, because it looks at unintended consequences. And if you look wider, it looks at cascade actions. We're a global society, so things cascade. And if you take the Ukraine war, it's a fairly contained war. A lot of human tragedy, but within one small place. But it's where a lot of our grain comes from globally. So it's got big supply chain impacts on food. And of course, fuel prices have been affected. Parts for engineering have been affected. Climate change, again, that's having and will have even more so cascade effects to every country. COVID, the same. Even one very simple thing, one boat getting stuck in a canal, the Ever Given going broadside in the Suez, cause supply chain chaos for a huge range of products, and in so many different countries, both to exporters and importers. And that's because of the complexity of this web. And it's why you need to think about all of it. And also why it's more effective to start at the beginning of a thread, to look for prevention rather than for cure. Because designing out problems is more effective, and it's usually more cost effective as well.
Well, it does bring to mind, you know, an impact of Brexit that happened last year when I was importing some fibre-based material for a stand build that ended up getting caught up in the customs process for almost a month before we could clear it, because it was a mixed consignment. And you think, how hard can it be? And we discovered exactly how hard it can be. So yeah, if we had maybe given a bit more thought to that possible impact, we would have been able to then save ourselves a whole lot of challenges when it came to getting things printed and then back out to the venue. So yeah, sounds like good advice to me. So in terms of designing out problems, how does that relate to the circular economy?
It relates because the circular economy isn't just based on taking problems as they are, taking products as they are, and working out how to recycle them. It starts at looking at what you want to achieve and how you can do that better. So it can be as simple as designing a printed product specifically to make it more recyclable. And this is becoming more important for things like packaging now, because printed products some time ago went away from being made from a single material that's easily recyclable to really complex products with combinations of different substrates. Packaging, point of sale display all did that. But now packaging is moving in the direction of trying to design it to make it more recyclable. And that applies to a whole range of other products to avoid losing rare metals into landfill, for example. And then it can go even beyond that, looking at how you change how you do something. Outside of the industry, there's an example whereby instead of buying lamps for your office, you can buy light, because light is actually what you want, not lamps. If you're the seller, if you sell lamps, you want people to buy more and more lamps. But if you sell light for a set fee, you want to achieve the desired lux levels with as few replacements and as little energy as possible. And then that can go further, designing the lamps to be easily dismantled, upgraded for reuse over and over again as they come back into your business. And that's where the circular economy starts with design. And you need to look along the whole life of a product or service, first to understand it, to design out anything undesirable in that whole web. So for display materials, for example, you'd communicate with everyone in your chain because they've all got different outlooks, different areas of knowledge, to know what's wanted from the product, what's its intended lifespan, how will it be treated once it's been finished with. And that affects your starting point, going beyond just making it with recycled materials or making it recyclable. You look at the system and you look at the whole value chain.
Okay. Before I ask my next question, one of the things I'd like to just know is, do you think that the Circulytics software from Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Ellen MacArthur Foundation in general is a good place for people to start looking at circular economy? Do you think that's one of the more helpful sources?
Yes, it's an excellent place, and it has lots of interesting case examples, case histories that people can learn from. It's got very good, simple diagrammatic explanations of how it works. It's a wonderful place for people to look.
Okay, great. So printers are often pushed in specific directions by their customers. Can systems thinking help us with this in terms of better advising them and making more proactive decisions?
Yes, it can, because the more you understand things, the more you can be proactive. If you read through ISO 14001, which is the classic management standard for environment, it leads you into what they term life cycle thinking. And it expects you to consider all the ways your business impacts the environment, and whether it's directly by what you do or indirectly by what you buy and sell, or even what you have influence over. So you look at the effects all these activities have on the environment, then you can plan what you do to manage those effects, but all the time monitoring for unintended consequences. And this can involve different ways of thinking again. Another example outside of the industry, but familiar to everyone, is not just making smartphones more efficiently, but making more efficient smartphones because their impacts are in use, and then making them easily repairable, supporting software for longer, looking at how you can take back old phones to reuse the components or materials, and then making them sustainable in other ways, avoiding conflict materials, treating workers fairly. And there is a phone manufacturer that does all that. And that is very much looking at the whole system of phones and phone use.
What are they called again? I've come across them, but I can't remember their name off the top of my head.
Fairphone.
Okay. Because they're kind of a modular, so you can replace the screen. Users can replace the screen, the battery, the key components,
Yes.
aren't they? And don't they?
And they've got guides on iFixit. It's all designed around extending the lifespan of the phone, making it easily manageable by the people who use it.
And from the software side, don't they talk about, isn't it a minimum service life of 5 years? I think.
Yes, and quite often longer.
Yeah.
So it keeps them in use for much, much longer and saves a lot of waste.
Yeah.
And that comes from system thinking, really.
Yeah.
But if you do that, if you understand the system behind what you do, it then puts you in control. And bandwagons will always come along. Your customers will be affected by them. But if you're fully aware of all your impacts, and if you're taking steps to manage or control them, if you've got plans ready as part of your long-term business plan to be implemented, then you're not going to be caught on the back foot. If they come with a question, you can be proactive and show them that, yes, you're in control, rather than being reactive and having to say, oh, I'll look into that.
Yeah. So I'd say that systems thinking seems quite complex, when we're used to thinking about profitability, economics, rather than the other impacts that are becoming important with environmental and social. What would you suggest would be a good starting point? Because with all these things, it takes time, but it'll be really nice to know where we should begin.
One good place, obviously, is to take the time to really understand and follow the principles of ISO 14001. Most business managers will have someone handling the day-to-day aspects of it. But if you really get involved with it, if you look under the bonnet to try and understand its principles, then that guides you more into systems thinking. If you have an engineering mindset, which a lot of people in our industry have, then look at systems engineering techniques, because it's very much the same kind of transferable skill. Or if you have a different kind of mindset, you could say pick an item that you produce and start looking beyond your doors, whether it's a t-shirt, a banner, an in-store display, and start asking yourself, well, where does the material that I make it with come from? How is it made? How do I produce it? What does my customer do with it? Where does it go? And build up a picture of its life. And ask yourself questions like, what is the customer wanting to achieve with it? And think about ways that changes might help, other ways to achieve your customer's aims, and where you can tweak the system to make that change. But considering what other outcomes could result that might not be wanted. So you'd listen to customers, listen to suppliers, gain their knowledge, but also keeping records, because referring back to them is really important to learn what worked, what didn't work. I think it was Edison that had counted success as having umpteen thousand ways of finding how not to make a light bulb, but built on it. But records also demonstrate what you're doing, how you got there, and it's good for customers to know that you're recording what you're doing.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that sounds like a good way in. So thank you so much, Claire. Really appreciate your time today, and I think Claire is a regular contributor to FESPA, and we really do appreciate your knowledge and guidance. So beyond the video recordings, of course, if you're visiting FESPA Global Print Expo between the 23rd, 26th of May, you'll have the opportunity to visit the Sustainability Spotlight stand, which is going to feature a range of innovative sustainable materials, as well as the stand build itself being more sustainable than using MDF and kind of traditional build materials, which is being the carbon footprint is being calculated, and all that information will be displayed. So have a look when you come to the show, and in the meantime, if you want to find other information, please visit FESPA.com. under the news and media section, you'll discover more online information and articles surrounding Sustainability Spotlight, where we speak to industry experts about sustainability and what you can do to discover business opportunities to reduce, reuse and recycle materials and improve your knowledge. So thank you very much indeed. I look forward to hopefully having you join for some of the next ones in the series. But Claire, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Graham, for the opportunity. And goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, cheers for now. Bye-bye.